Hey guys, welcome to the first installment of Right, Wrong, or Indifferent. These first few installments are going to be a review series on some podcasts that I already listened to and who already really enjoy a lot. And the first one we're going to start with is the podcast of all podcasts, which is the Joe Rogan Podcast. I mean, tons of people listen to this podcast, including me, and there is a ton of information in that content. You could almost have a full-time job combing through that stuff and organizing it into specific categories, which is one reason why I really like the podcast a lot. Some people, you say you listen to Joe Rogan Podcast and they think you're kind of like a Joe Rogan wannabe or something, which, I mean, he's awesome, and who doesn't want to be super successful and be confident and all those great things. But really, the reason why I really enjoy his podcast, well, there's a lot of reasons, but one of them is just because of the open dialogue. You can go through over 1,000 episodes of over an hour of just good conversation. People talking to each other, people providing information, people growing, people learning. It's amazing, especially today in our political climate that we're currently in. I think it's important that we all sit down and talk to each other. And that's half the reason I created this podcast. And it's definitely something that I've considered while creating it. It's kind of like, what genre do I want to be? Well, I just want to have a place where people can come together and speak their mind and not be scared of persecution. We all have different ideas and things of how things should be. And I think the power is when we come together and we make changes in a world that are positive. So, to Joe Rogan Experience, like I said, there's about 1,000 different episodes, even more now. What's it about? Really, it's about anything. He has anything from MMA fighters on there to scientists to talk about sleep, who talk about diet, who talk about ancient human history. Anything that kind of sparks Joe's interest, he tries to get that person and bring them on. Some of my favorite episodes are Dr. Rhonda Patrick. If you're looking for diet information and you want to get started on listening to some Joe Rogan podcasts, she's a great one to start with. For like ancient civilization kind of stuff, you can look into Randall Carlson is one of my favorites by far. He uses wonderful science and really backs a lot of it up to make his predictions. And if you haven't heard of Randall Carlson and about some of the stuff he studies, I would definitely recommend go do that. Randall Carlson is great. You just can't say enough good things about him. Even with Graham Hancock on there, Graham's a little more fantastical, but when they start putting their evidence parallel side by side, it's hard to deny that there's something more going on there. But I'll leave that up to you. Of course, go check it out. What do you think about it? I love Randall Carlson a lot. I think he should get more attention at this point from some of his information. So check him out in the JRE as well. We talked about Dr. Rhonda Patrick. Check her out too. If you're looking for diet science information, there's really not many better people on the earth at this point that I've heard. Someone could say differently, but she really wants to learn more and figure out kind of what's going on in the diet world right now with everyone having their own subjective opinions. She's really trying to map that out objectively. So if diet is something you're looking into, please check out her. She's amazing on Joe Rogan's podcast. And the reason why I'm bringing some of these people to you is because there are so many, and that's almost a con of Joe's podcast, is there's so many and there's so much good information in there. It's hard to really filter through a lot of it and find what you're looking for. Because for just as many very serious and scientific podcasts, there's just as many fun podcasts. And those are just as good too. I've listened to every single Joey Diaz podcast with Joe Rogan. I mean, if those two together are hilarious. I mean, if you're just driving down the road and you want something to laugh to, Joe Rogan with any other comedian is fantastic. Brian Callen, Brandon Schaub, they love to harass each other. Of course, where do you listen to these at? I usually do YouTube just because I do enjoy seeing the guests. But of course, if I'm on the road, you can get those on Google Play or the podcast store. Who's the audience? Basically anybody and everybody. I send Joe Rogan podcasts to almost everybody I know if I feel like they'll find interest in it. The problem is you are having these 2 to 3 hour conversations. But I say this truly, I don't think there's anybody who can listen to it if there's something in their interest and not find something to, A, just improve themselves intellectually, and B, just to see what it's like for people to have good conversation. I mean, I think it's rare these days for people to sit down and look each other in the eye and have those 3 hour conversations, and that's why it's important for Joe to have this platform. Not only to do it because it needs to be done, but just to show people how it can be done. So I think everyone should be listening to Joe Rogan at this point. Again, I know it sounds like a complete fanboy, and I definitely am, don't get me wrong. But it's hard to argue with, I think, about how influential he's been in this medium and the amount of information that he's brought to the world is, I don't know, almost unprecedented, really, when you think about it. Like, really, if you think about it, how much information Joe's brought to people is incredible. Yeah, I've never actually thought about that till just now. How much have I learned from the podcasting compared to other mediums? It's hard to say. Maybe learning's not the word. Maybe piqued my interest in things as I dabble more into them. Because, of course, I kind of feel the same way about a lot of things. I can take all this information and apply it to my life, and then what does that equal? What does that information plus me equal in my life? And those are the kind of things I dabble into on Joe's podcast. And I think he kind of has the same mindset about things as I do, as far as how he goes about things. He tries everything he can. He knows he's not the expert, but he wants to learn everything, and I respect that a lot. The podcast is great. I'm trying to be judgmental. If I'm going to be critical of it, if I'm going to do a con list for Joe Rogan, it's the volume of work and the volume of time each podcast takes. But I believe that's just as much of a pro as it is a con, Sometimes we need to sit back and take our time and have serious conversations with people that last 3 hours, not just little meetings here and there about specific topics. We need to explore each other's mind and ideas. And that's my opinion on it. And I think that's more and more important as we move forward and people get more connected to the internet. We have to, A, dictate what's an objective truth and what's not an objective truth. But what do those objective truths mean to other people? And how do they apply those to their life? I really like the Joe Rogan podcast. I would recommend it to anybody. But if you wanted to get into it, and that's why you're viewing this, you need to find something you're interested in and see if Joe's already dabbled in it a little bit. And see who he's brought on to educate himself about these types of things. I think you could learn a lot, if not just observing the conversation. Cool. Thank you so much, guys, for listening to this first installment of our review series. I really, really appreciate it. My name is Daniel, and this is Right, Wrong, or Indifferent. Please remember to subscribe, and subscribe to Joe's too. I think he deserves it. Thank you so much, and have a great day.